Hello dear readers and subscribers. What all successful artists have in common is that they have a very clear vision, style, or intriguing backstory, and even more, they are able to communicate it very convincingly. This is, of course, where the artist statement comes into place. An artist statement is a personal text describing your artistic practice, technique, process, subject matter, and some specific works or series of works, enabling the artist to put their art into words and share them convincingly and consistently. As a result, in this video, we're going to provide you a complete step-by-step guide on how to write your artist statement, including a spreadsheet that we have designed to streamline and professionalize this process, especially for those who are not very good when it comes to writing English. Before we begin with step number 1, it is very important to also understand why we need an artist statement and how we should use it. Throughout your career as an artist, there will be moments where you will be tested. Questions will be asked by visitors, gallery directors, critics, or perhaps by the press about your work. And of course, if we haven't prepared anything or never put anything down in writing, we can make a shaky and unconvincing impression when we're being put on the spot, especially in your early days of your career. As a result, writing your artist statement, an extensive text about everything that your work is about, is the perfect preparation to make a good impression, because we don't get that many chances to make a good impression in the art world. This can very often be the difference between a sale or no sale, being your works being exhibited at a gallery or remaining unseen. Very often we hear it, that it is one thing to see the artwork, but it's an entirely different experience when you hear the backstory or the context beyond the artwork. And that is very, very true. People love a good story, and people love something that is interesting or that can give them an interesting perspective on a certain artwork, which shifts the experience completely. If you have never prepared anything about your work when it comes to talking about your work, chances are likely that you will fall through the basket, or perhaps that you won't be able to talk about your art with the confidence it deserves, that you'll be looking for the right words. Whereas if you have written an artist statement, the words are already there, and it's a foundation you can rely on for the rest of your career. When it comes to the use of an artist statement, all too often, especially in the United States, people think the artist statement is a text that you must have on your artist website in which you write and talk about your own work. However, we never see such an artist statement being publicly available online when it comes to successful established artists. Never. What we do see online is a professional artist biography, which is another topic and another tool that we have provided in one of our previous videos. So feel free to watch that video next. So the artist statement is a lot more extensive, and it is for personal use only. We only see the artist statement being put on the website by artists who are either hobby artists or artists that represent themselves and look for career paths via, for instance, social media or via direct sales with an e-commerce shop on their website. However, for gallery representation, we never see this on their website. So by putting your vision in writing, you can fine-tune and polish that vision. You can study and change it to make it more concise, specific, and to the point. You can rely on it, fall back on it, this solid and all-encompassing foundation whenever you need to. You won't struggle to find right words because the words are already there. You'll feel confident, tell your story in the best way possible, and tell it consistently from show to show, curator to critic, press to peers, gallery director to collector. Once you have your professional artist statement, you can rely on it for the rest of your career. And this is something all successful artists are doing in a sense. If we have a look, for instance, if you would find 10 interviews here on YouTube by Luc Tuymans, we'll notice that he's telling the same things over and over again. It's that very same foundation, and that's exactly what we'll be doing today. So feel free to open up a Word document and use this video or the article version of this video to write your own. However, we have also prepared a spreadsheet, a tool to create your artist statement. I have very often referred to the artist statement as a personal tool, and that you can simply write about your own art, but I'm very much aware that if you're staring at that blank Word document, that it's a lot more tricky than you can can imagine, and especially for those who don't have the writing skills in English. So therefore, with this document, we can streamline this process. You simply have to answer the questions that I'm asking in this document, and then I also provide a ChatGPT prompt in which you can copy and paste your answer, and then ChatGPT makes it sound a lot more professional and also in fluent English. So feel free to create your own document by using this free article or free video, or you can opt to save some time and streamline this process by using our new tool specifically designed to create your professional artist statement. Now, all of that being said, let's get started with our very first step. The opening statement of your artist statement are the very first 3 key sentences, and these sentences are perhaps the most important of your entire artist statement. All good artists are able to introduce themselves in just a couple of sentences without having to bombard the audience with too much information, and that's also how it works in real life. Very often, when we get the chance to introduce ourselves, or when somebody has a look at our work, they are only paying attention for 3 sentences. It's like an elevator pitch. 3 sentences is sometimes all we get. So if you are struggling to find the right words, or not being concise enough, or being too vague that it could be anything that we're describing, then we won't make a convincing impression. So we need to be able to condense everything in just 3 sentences. Make sure to include in these 3 sentences where you are from and where you are based, who you are, of course, what type of artist you are in terms of artistic disciplines, what type of work you create or are best known for, the meaning or purpose of your work in a nutshell. So in these 3 sentences we have the who, the where, the what, and also perhaps the why in terms of the subject matter. It can be very challenging to answer all these things in just 3 sentences, but it's very, very important. I am briefly going to show how it works with our tool to create your artist statements. For instance, here in this very first step to create the first must-have key sentences, we have this little introduction about this step, and then we simply have to answer the following questions. You can write them down here. So question number 1, what is your name? When were you born, where, and where are you currently based? What artistic discipline do you practice? And here we have some additional instructions, how you should write it down, for instance, contemporary painter, contemporary sculptor, or if you combine multiple disciplines as a multidisciplinary artist working in etc., etc. Next, what type of work do you create, or what are you best known for? The next question, what is the meaning of your work in a nutshell? That's it. In the next step, they asked us to open ChatGPT, so we're going to click on it. You can use the free version, 3.5. I also have the paid version 4, but the free version works perfectly fine as well. We're going to copy and paste the prompt that I have provided here to write our these first sentences in a specific style, in just 3 sentences, followed by copy and pasting, of course, the text that we have written down, and then we simply hit enter, and ChatGPT is doing all the hard work for us, making sure that it is written in fluent English in a neutral and concise tone, and the end result is very good. Julien Delagrange, born in 1994 in Kortrijk, Belgium, is a contemporary painter and draughtsman residing in Harelbeke, Belgium. He's renowned for his figurative wall paintings on both paper and linen, as well as his black and white charcoal drawings, which employ a mixed technique involving graphite, pastel, Chinese ink and acrylics. Delagrange's work delves into the inherent internal conflict between primitive human nature and the demands of modern, technologically advanced society. So feel free to have a look and also to pay attention to these first 3 sentences on practically every single artist biography or press release in the high-end art world. The second step is discussing your technique, process and style. So this is also a very important part of your artist statement, something that very often you'll be asked for. When discussing your technique, it is very important to simply keep it simple and start with the basics first. What is your artist discipline, as we have discussed in the first key sentences, but also what specific materials are you using? So I want you to write down every single individual material that you use in your work. For instance, you can be a painter, but do you paint with oils or acrylics? Do you paint on canvas or on wood? Don't refer to your technique, for instance, as mixed media, because that could mean anything, and this is a term that is predominantly being used by hobby artists, whereas in the art world, they describe every single material or medium in the metadata. So make sure to specify those. And after describing these material ingredients, so to speak, it is also important to try to explain your so-called unique selling proposition. What makes your technique different or stand out? Think of using raw pigment or thickening your paint to create your own substance, such as Bram Bogaert, or thinning it down, such as Robert Janitz. Or, as a sculptor, using found objects as ready-mades, such as the Unmade Bed by Tracy Emin, or a shark with Damien Hirst. Or is there a particular and dominant presence of a certain material? Think of the steel patina with Richard Serra, or the use of yarn by Fred Sandbeck. Is your surface unique? For instance, Remy Isberge, who paints on velvet, or Claire Tabouret, using rugs. Is there a unique implementation of your medium? For instance, the horizontal bands of squeezed paint in Andy Denzler's figurative wall paintings, or the use of spray paint with Katharina Gross's abstracts. Is there a unique methodology in your process? For instance, the research and use of archival imagery with Marlene Dumas, or Rinus van de Velde, who creates an entire scenography to depict his fictional narratives. So look for the following things within your technique: unique medium, unique surface, characteristic use of your medium, a unique creation process, or perhaps a unique finishing process. These technical aspects will result in a certain visual outcome, which will be your style. Once more, we can start broad by mentioning your overall style. For instance, is it naturalistic figuration, such as Guillaume Bresson? Or is it hyper-realistic figuration, such as Chuck Close? Or perhaps it is a more loose figuration, a more expressive figuration, for instance, the work of Nicole Eisenman. Or perhaps it is abstract and it is minimal abstraction, such as Imi Knöbel, or gestural abstraction, such as Oscar Murillo. Or perhaps it is more conceptual abstraction, such as Pieter Vermeers. So you can simply use the right terminology from the art jargon that fits your sub-niche that you're working in. And of course, don't invent something here. It's very important to use the things that are being used in the art world so that they can recognize it and see where they can position you, and to be able to know what term is best to describe your niche. It is of course very important to have a look at other artist biographies and press releases. Here, a very good exercise that comes into place is something we discussed last week when we were talking about gatekeeping and the subjectivity of art, is by finding 10 artists or 20 artists who are similar, working in a similar style as yours, and then you can see what words are being used to describe that style of those artists. Having established our overall sub-niche, now it's time to go a bit more in depth and discuss the more personal attributes of your work and what makes it stand out and yours truly. Look for personal visual elements such as brushwork, color, texture, composition, visual motifs, etc. Think of the recognizable brushwork of Luc Tuymans, the blurry haze on top of Gerhard Richter's photo paintings, Yaya Kusama's colorful polka dots and pumpkins, the recognizable color palette and approach towards composition of Neo Rauch, the use of collage elements in Adrian Geni's work, Agnes Martin's minimal and monochromatic grids, Anthony Gormley's use of steel squares to build his figures, Louise Bourgeois' spiders and cages, or Sean Scully's vertical and horizontal bands of color, and so on. Up next, we have the subject matter of your art, which of course all starts with what you create and why. This is an aspect that many artists struggle with. Some have no clear subject matter because they're so focused on just the visual and the technical of their work, whereas others make things overly complicated to sound intellectual or make it sound very valuable, but are bombarding their audience with information in which the essence of the work is being lost. So yes, you do need to have a solid vision when it comes to your subject matter, but we don't have to overcomplicate things. So instead, you want to try to answer the following questions. And if you're not able to answer one of these questions, that's fine. You can just skip it and move on to the next. Why do you create art? What do you wish to find or achieve by creating art? Does your art have a message? Are there specific recurring themes in your art? Does your art explore philosophical issues? Is your art part of an artist's persona or so-called Gesamtkunstwerk? Does your art have a dominant narrative or multiple narratives? Does your art engage with recent or the art historical canon? Does your art explore for the sake of art, for instance, stylistic innovation, etc.? If you're unable to answer these questions with specific answers, then perhaps your art is not ready yet. So try to think of your art differently in terms of your subject matter. Don't use subject matter as an alibi to create something, but make it have true intent and purpose. To conclude, here are also some very common mistakes that I have seen over the years that I want you to be aware of. Don't invent new terms or isms. Inventing a new art movement for your own art is a common but ridiculed mistake. A movement consists of multiple artists, so don't confuse a movement with a personal style. Otherwise, we would have as many movements as artists. Avoid clichés that are overly used. In essence, say nothing. Think of expressing feelings and emotions, or inspired by the world around us, or a unique combination of abstraction and figuration. These things are overly used and, in essence, don't add anything new or relevant to your subject matter. They are vague and cliché. Don't make your art sound overly complex, intellectual, or pompous. Remain formal and do not try to oversell yourself. If your art does not consist of a clear message, narrative, or socio-political statement, that is fine. The medium can be the message, the process can be the message, and so on. So don't make something up because you feel like you have to. It won't work, it won't come across as genuine and therefore powerful. Up next, we have 3 more categories that we can discuss. Different periods within your work in which you see a clear development, where you can describe this development or an ongoing tendency, for instance, towards abstraction or reducing visual elements to go to the essence, etc. You can mention these periods and also illustrate how these periods shifted, but also, for instance, which series that were very important. If you have a series-based practice, which is something I very much recommend you to do, and is also how every solo show, for instance, in galleries also works. It's a coherent body of works to make a more powerful communication of the message of the exhibition concept. Then I want you to describe this series. Describe what the overhauling concept is in this oeuvre within your oeuvre, which is something very powerful. And to conclude, you can also provide descriptions for every single individual work. And this is an exercise I strongly recommend you to do, especially when you're preparing for an upcoming exhibition. During this show, you will be asked about individual works, and if you have just written a small paragraph about each work, what it consists of, what your intention was, what the subject matter is, all these things that we have already talked about, but specifically about an individual artwork, you'll feel a lot more confident. And you could also, for instance, share this document of individual artwork descriptions with your gallery director, so that they also get to the bottom of your work and are able to tell the story behind each artwork. To conclude, a final step is external input and professionalizing your writing. With external input, I'm referring to, for instance, other people who could assist you writing your artist statement. You can work together with an art critic, for instance. Professional art critics or art historians or curators, they know the right jargon to talk about your work. And also, they could, for instance, see certain connections that you weren't aware of. Things that you can explore further in upcoming works. So it can be a very synergetic collaboration. And when it comes to the price, especially if you work with art critics who also are starting out, because you need to be aware that becoming a successful art critic or making it your full-time job is very often as difficult as making it as an artist. You can go for more synergetic collaborations. For instance, they write a text for you and you give them one of your works. By doing so, you can foster long-term collaborations and synergetic relationships with these people. For instance, if you're having a show in the future and your gallery director asks, who do you want to be the author of the press release? You can ask them once more and they will appreciate it. And it goes both ways. If they are curating a show and you're setting the program of all the artists in the exhibition, they will think about you as well if you have thought about them in the past. So by doing so, not only will you have short-term benefits of a professional artist statement, some new concepts to explore perhaps, because it's with very good reason that in the studios of established artists, very often we have art critics on the permanent payroll. It is because they see these things, for instance, for new exhibitions, for new series. And then there is also the long-term aspects in which these contexts can be essential for long-term strategies in your career. So take out your sketchbook or a Word document or purchase our spreadsheet or working document to generate a professional artist statement using ChatGPT prompts and really get this down, get this overall foundation down and use it
for the rest of your career. You'll be surprised how much you can use this, not only during exhibitions, but also, for instance, in interviews. A clear-cut example here with my latest solo show in Paris. I was invited for a video interview and I didn't have to prepare anything because I already knew my artist statement. So I also invite you to have a look at that video interview, and you'll notice that we'll be discussing the exact same things here in this artist statement, resulting in a very convincing impression. You can find more information, the complete article for this video, as well as the tool to create this artist statement. We also have an overview page with our other tools for artists, so feel free to have a look at those as well. Thank you so much for tuning in today. I invite you to watch last week's video, which discussed gatekeeping, controversial topic, and also the subjectivity of art. So you can watch that next. Support us on Patreon and please consider subscribing to stay posted for more contemporary art. Bye.